Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. It's tempting, isn't it, to start to do all that again. At least I'm glad I'm standing up. I envy you, people from Iceland, your long-term data series. I think that's unique. That's, as a manager, that's what we're really looking for, because these data series can bring us forward. And that's something I'm going to talk a little bit about here. I'm going to talk about Angler logbooks, some long-term data series that I have been able to get hands-on and work with in a scientific way, and lead on to how to implement perhaps fish brain kind of mobile devices in our research to bring us further. So that's basically the theme of this talk. And of course that's not easy. We need to have a careful approach as a scientific, as a research. We need to be careful when using these data. I think we established that, but I'd like to give some examples on what I have learned from my use of Angler logbooks. So basically this is the content, and if you drop out for a second or two, you can just try to keep track by looking at the top bar. That's where I am in the talk. At least that's good for me, so keep track of. So I'll give you an example of how we have used logbooks with the long-term data series. And it's about pike. I guess most of you are familiar with pike, I think so. Just to give you a quick introduction, it's a top predator, and it can influence the trophic status of lakes, for instance. But you can also find it in streams. You can find it in the Baltics, where it's quite common. We use some very good fisheries. And good fisheries, yes, both for commercial fishermen, which is important in some areas, and important in Denmark at least. Not as important as it used to be, but some people still fish commercially for pike. But most important, it's an important game for anglers. So that's a little bit about pike for you. So, Angler logbooks. By coincidence, I got hands of this of logbooks from this fishing club. It's a very old fishing club called Lystfiskeriforeningen, for those of you who want to remember Danish names. But it's a very old club. Actually, I think it has the oldest club magazine in the world. At least that's what they claim themselves, from 1889. Since then, they have actually registered the catches, which is quite cool. That, when you think of it, actually. In the beginning, it was just numbers caught, and how many were caught, and how big they were, stuff like that. But since 1940, they started trying to standardize this. And with standardized data, I mean, they put in effort. They even started to register if they didn't catch it. And that's when it became really, really cool, these days. I'll come back to that later, because this is essential. So, how's it done? When you fish in this lake, particular lake I'm going to talk about, Lake Esrum, it's done by boats. And quite simple, when the member returns the boat, he has to fill in that logbook. And if you don't do that, he's out of the club, basically. So, you have a high compliance here. People, they do that. They do fill out a logbook. Do they lie? Do they cheat? Well, I don't know, but perhaps. Who knows? But at least they fill out the logbook. So there's some nice data here for this particular lake, Lake Esrum. For Danish standards, it's quite a big lake actually. So it's yeah, some details, don't bother about that, but fish communities, and it's a mesotrophic lake, which is quite rare in Denmark actually. Most lakes are eutrophic. But anyways, so this is a quite huge lake. They go fishing there for pike especially. Now, this study, which was published last year, we focused on one particular thing. That was, how does recreational fishing together with commercial fishing affect fish populations? That was one of the things that we looked at here. And so I'll just dwell a little bit about the history of commercial fishermen in this particular lake. During the study period since, which was about in 1950, where the time series that I use here are from, there's been 3 different fishermen. So whenever there's a fisherman, commercial fisherman, there's only one. So then there is one fisherman, and he's there for several years. And fisherman A, I call him fisherman A, he was there from 1939 to 1971. There was a guy fishing there. He had one strategy. He used, for instance, this guy, he stocked pike every year. He was like a bit more into sustainability, you could say. He didn't fish quite as intensive with fight nets and pound nets as fisherman B, who came after him. Fisherman B, this guy, he fished especially in spring with pound nets. Very efficient. He was targeting spawning pike, basically. And then after the fisherman B, fisherman C came, and in that period, actually, pike fishing was abandoned. You were not allowed to fish for pike anymore. There was still fishing going on. And if you had a pike as a bycatch, you could actually bring it home. So that's like, whether fishing or whether no fishing, well, you don't know, basically. But what we do know is that in 1998, commercial fishing in this particular lake was stopped. No more commercial fishing. And at the same time, there was angling going on. So what we get from the logbooks that they produced from this particular lake, well, we get the number of fishing trips, the boat trips, that's the effort. We get the number of landed pike, also the number of caught and released pike. So we get catch and release rates during time for this. And the weights of not released pike. We don't have the weights of the released pike. And then we have weight of record pike. I'll come back to the record pike thing later on. So from that, we could calculate the monthly pike abundance, the catch per unit effort, quite a common term in fisheries research, catch per unit effort, the number of pike per boat trip. And the monthly proportion of released pike, so we have an estimate of release rate. And the size distribution, that was the annual weight of record pike above 7 kilos. So in this lake, if you catch a pike above 7 kilos, it qualifies to be a record pike. And record pikes are honored. You are kingfisher or whatever for that particular month. So you want to register pike, but you only register pike that is above 7 kilos. Below that, don't even bother. So we only have data for these 7 kilo pike. Okay, some results. This is from 1949. And is this hangover? Sorry. So this is the results. So what we have here is the monthly average. These are different months for the whole period. You see huge variation here. And what we did was that we tried to build a statistical model that could sort of cope with this. It's something called state-based modeling that could produce a confidence interval here and also estimate from some months, for some reasons there were no data. So you get some estimate of that as well. There's a bit of statistics. Don't bother too much about that. But 200 to 650 fishing trips per year. That was sort of the basis for this. And you can see there are changes here, and as you'll see soon, that this is different fishermen, right? If you remember, this is where it came from fisherman B, fishing quite intensively for pike, and then pike fishing was at least stopped to some extent, and here completely stopped. And you can see there is an increase, at least in the catch of anglers during this period. So, we tried to put this into the statistical model, and we had some different variables. We looked at the commercial fisherman ID, the different fisherman periods, the anglers release rates. We also had numbers for perch, a prey, and a potential competitor for the small ones. We had air temperature. We had stocking density of pike. Could that be reflected in the angler's catch? That pike were actually stocked during the period. So we put all that into a model, and what came out, there were some interactions, and especially one almost significant interaction was the angler's release rate and the fisherman ID, or fisherman period. So it was the angler's release rate that was important, and that is catch and release the 2 previous years. We had an estimate for the catch and release the 2 previous years. How did that affect the fishing in year number 3? And then we had the commercial fisherman ID. And a combination of these two seem to be important. Month is important. They just catch more in May than they do in July. Water temperature increase, so you don't catch that many pike. Perch abundance, not significant. air temperature, stocking density of pike didn't seem to matter. Yeah, said that potentially in combination. So, what is that? Can we understand this interaction? Perhaps here we have the average release rate the previous 2 years and the pike number per boat trip, the catch per unit effort. And you can see the more that is released in previous years, the more they catch the following years. So this seems to be an effect of catch and release on pike catch. But during years with commercial pike fishing, it was not quite that way. As you can see here, again these lines are the fisherman ID. So these two lines is when there is no commercial fishing, and fisherman C, who did not fish intensively for pike. And these lines are fisherman A and B, who fished actually quite intensively for pike. So here was a lot of commercial fishing for pike, no commercial fishing for pike. And why do we see this interaction? One explanation, which is quite straightforward, is that it has to do with, commercial fishermen A and B, they're allowed to fish for pike, so they harvested more pike. And here are harvest numbers. How much did they harvest per hectare? So if there is a high harvest of pike at the same, by commercial fishermen concurrently with anglers, then there is no effect of catch and release. But if anglers are the only one fishing there, then there is no effect of catch and release. It pretty much makes sense. If there are different sectors, exploitation of pike, then, that I release a pike and you go catch it, then it's obviously will not have that big an effect. So that's perhaps the most straightforward explanation. So, as a fisheries management, what can I learn from this? Well, if you want to manage a fish population, you have to look into all that are using this resource. So, if you want to promote catch and release fishing by anglers, well, then perhaps it's not a good idea to have intensive commercial fishing for them at the same time. Makes perhaps no sense. So just please note here that without the angler's effort, this would make no sense. If I only had the numbers of pike caught, then we couldn't use this for anything. But simply by having the days where there were no catch as well, the 0 trips in this data set, that makes it possible to use this scientifically. So that's something I would like to say to you guys from Fishbrain, and I've talked to some of you about it already. This is important if you want to sell it to scientists. I'll come back to you. So, just a quick word about logbooks and size distribution, because size distribution is actually independent on the effort. So this is actually something where you can use them regardlessly if you have the effort. And I talked about the record pike in this, so this is data for the record pike. There was no effect of catch and release on the catch of so you didn't catch bigger pike in the years where you have more catch and release. But that's because I don't know if they released only big pike. They can also release small pike. So at least our model didn't show that. What we do see anyway is there is an effect, appears to be an effect of commercial fishing. This is the max weight of the record pike. There's years here. And what you can see is that there is, particularly at one place, where this drops very dramatically. And that was during fisherman A to B, B to C, during the period of fisherman B, who fished intensively for pike during spring with these pond nets. No pike above 10 kilos were caught in that period. So you can go in retrospectively and evaluate the stuff simply by having the max weight of fish. Another thing that you could look at is that after commercial fishing was completely stopped, there's a huge amount of the catches which is way above 10 kilos during that period. So it gives us some information. And all this just to show that these angler logbooks can be used in a scientific way, give me as a fisheries manager really cool data. How am I on time? You don't know? I don't know either. Okay. Major point here, 62 years of data, which I presented here. 62 years of data is really cool. 120 years would be even better. So, I mean, long time series is important, and we have to be quite visionary. We have to think way ahead of us. And yeah. So, just a little bit about the challenges involved in using angler logbooks. Kian touched that already on day one. The angler diversity. More specialized anglers, more skilled anglers simply catch more. That's a fact. You need to take that into account if you want to use effort data and stuff like that. Anglers are very reluctant to share their catch. We established that already. Temporal and spatial trends in angling techniques and angling accessories can also bias data. In recent years, the technology that has become available to people, common anglers, has increased dramatically. So, how does that affect your chance of catching? It's suddenly on the market, and you will give people perhaps better ways to fish. How does that affect our numbers, right? So you have to take that into account as well. And this is really crucial: how to get fish to register fish trips. If this is what you want, then how to get people to register when they catch nothing. Tough one, isn't it? And yeah, and also I think we need information from the anglers of their experience. How many years have you been fishing, stuff like that. That would be really good to calibrate data on. We also need some validations. We need to have these angler logbooks going on at the same time as we use traditional methods, so we can compare how they're used. So they should not stand alone. Also, logbooks. We need to combine it with measurements of biotic and adjunct variables, like Seki does. That's just one easy thing to teach anglers to do. So include them, as you also talked about this citizen science and aquatic stewardship, what is called. It's really, it's the future, I think. So where I am from, DTU Aqua, we believe that this standardized angler logbook is really a tool that can provide valuable data, and it is a tool for the future. And independently of all this, 1.5 years ago, we decided to develop our own. And that is good news and bad news. I mean, we are pretty far with this, and I can recognize everything that has been said about how difficult it is, and I think you've come so far with your stuff, and that's really cool. Luckily, I see that we are at least two different products, because we aim at the scientific. The way that we are going to get our anglers to use this is by simply engaging them in science. This is how we want to sell this. Help the science, help the fish populations by doing logbooks. I am very much into this, and I can crash and burn on this. I know this can be complete failure, but I really believe this is the way forward, and I will go all the way to try to implement this. And the way, just examples of features that we have, of course, it's for all, it's both streams, lakes, coasts, and sea fishing, because acknowledging that it's also a private logbook for the angler. This is where you keep your catches. That is really important. It's something I enjoy myself. You cannot finish a fishing trip if you don't give up the fishing. You have to set how many hours you can fish. Otherwise, you cannot save your catch or whatever. That's something that we have implemented. And of course, all the public secret thing, you need to have that that people can have their catches for themselves. But still, I say that DTU Aqua will use that data. So try to do it, of course, in an anonymous way, but we will use even secret data in terms of fisheries management. So, and we also offer that public data can be seen by the anglers. And one thing that is quite important, and something that can push our project forward, is that we engage angler clubs. Because angler clubs, they want to have data for their members. and they can put pressure on their members to start to log. A lot of angling clubs in Denmark are already using this, but they don't have the effort. They just say how many eggs caught, and it's even mandatory to do that, but they don't have the effort. We offer them a product where they can easily do it. And this, perhaps the most important here, is that this is financed by the Danish fishing license funds. So this is a completely non-commercial. There'll be no ads, there'll be nothing. This is funded by John. There's a lot of challenges here, and it's easy to think of things that can go wrong here. But we'll see. I'm so keen on this, and there are different solutions, and I've learned a lot about how can we motivate people then to use this. And there's one thing that I've highlighted here, that's patience. We need to have patience with this. And we'll see how it looks like in 10 years. But, yeah. So, I think that's it. No, yeah. I just hope that we can collaborate on this. I mean, whoever's interested in seeing our system and perhaps get inspired by that, I'm happy to give a demonstration. I'll keep you updated if you want to. Fish brain, I mean, let's talk and see how can we... The worst thing that I can imagine is that we have really good data put at different platforms around that does not share, right? That would be the worst scenario for me as a fisheries manager. And yeah, so that's just to be completely frank about this. And also with you, I mean, there's nothing wrong that it's for your fish base from our system. I mean, of course, for the Danish list. So, yes, and thank you. And there's a paper on this, the first part with the angler logbook that you can read if you want to, and I can send it to you. So, that's all. Thank you. Yeah, we have to do creel service as well. We have to go out on the fishing spots and ask people, are you using this? Not as the first thing, but yeah, it's a creel service. That's the way to come around to get an idea of the sensitivity among the users.
I think it's really inspiring talk and excellent work, Christian. That's really good. I'm kind of interested in lots of aspects of this. We're starting to do something similar, so it would be really good to talk to you more about it.
It's lucky we're in the same group.
Yeah, it's good. I guess the key thing for me is about how you deal with this change in technology over time. And if you look at the parallel with the historical records from the sea fisheries, the commercial fisheries, that they try and work out what fishing power is over time and then try and correct their time series based on that. Is there anything you could do with these data in a similar way?
Yeah, I think there is. I mean, it's all about how much you want to bother the user, isn't it? I mean, you can ask them all sorts of things. But if you ask them too much, then they'll decline to use it.
This is more about how you correct the data
over
time yourself.
I don't think it's difficult to correct the data for that. The data I've shown here to correct that, it's definitely something that can explain also the increase in catches. No doubt about it. You're right, it's really tricky.
Move forward. Only comment that fish brand CIO Johan is a master doing fishing trips without any catches.
Thank you for pointing that out.